Folks, get this turned down a bit. Welcome to another edition of the Omnist Hour. Music in the background I thought was appropriate for this session. It's Woodwind Quintet by Jean Francais, a fairly modernist classical composer whose music takes a bit of getting used to, but I find fits certain moods. Well, where are we going today? Well, after yesterday's session, one of the things that came up during the course of the following day was a bit of a discussion arising out of some other YouTube content talking about the universal mind, and an exchange I had with somebody who responded to my comments that kind of prompted me to focus in on that particular belief system, which is quite popular with materialist scientists and sort of the cosmic consciousness hive mind cults. The artwork behind me, I think, kind of really fit the theme. I decided to give you just one of the ones it threw at me. The prompt that generated this was I told it to show me the cover of the final issue of Popular Science magazine after the Messiah returns. And this is the one I enjoyed the most. Popular Science, which I love the spelling mistakes and weirdness that the AI generates in its own unique linguistic fashion. I'll show you real quick all of the options it generated so you can take a gander. It seemed to have a very fixed idea of what the Messiah was going to look like, which I thought was interesting. And you can see it found a lot of different ways to spell popular science and a lot of different ideas of what to put in to make it look like a cover. I'm going to have to go back and actually look at some of those more closely to see what it envisioned as some of the key articles in that special issue of the magazine. At any rate, what we're going to talk about today, let me pull up my notes. I'm going to call this one Debunking the Universal Mind Fallacy. What's wrong with cosmic communism? Okay, so let's talk about it. For those of you who may not be familiar with this universal mind concept, I'm going to get back to me talking here. Basically, the idea is grown out of some of the maps that cosmologists have made of the data coming in from the Hubble Space Telescope and now the James Webb Space Telescope, which, if you look at the visible universe in certain spectra of radiation, between ultra violet to infrared. Most of the interest is on the infrared side of the spectrum because of the redshift nature of the expanding universe. They have noticed that there seems to be some sort of a pattern underlying the distribution of matter, or the distribution of apparent matter based upon radiation coming from different directions, that looks sort of like the structure of the human mind. If you look at it, through certain kinds of imaging techniques that are commonly used, like CAT scan, whatever, that show the firing of the neurons and so forth, and the connections between neurons in the brain. Okay, so their idea that grew out of that was that, oh, the universe is like one big brain, and there's some overmind, if you will, that runs everything, and that's God. And the interpretations that go from there can feed either the materialistic viewpoint of everything is all planned and by order and by dictate, and everything runs like a clockwork based upon the laws of the universe, the laws of physics and chemistry. So that's a popular viewpoint of materialist atheists who basically don't want to take any responsibility for anything they do. I was just programmed to do that. If I'm selfish, if I'm a bastard, I can't help it. That's just the way I was born. And that's a very popular platform for many young people and older people, in fact, who want to have license to do whatever they want and want to be able to forgive themselves for any sin instantaneously. In fact, the general idea is it can't be a sin because I was going to do it anyway. I didn't have any control over it. God made me do it. The universe made me do it. Nature made me do it. Science made me do it. It's all sorts of narcissistic ideas of irresponsibility for individual behavior. Okay, so where did this idea emerge from? Well, it turns out that yes, there are repeating patterns throughout creation. And the pattern that one can observe in the nearest universe, the universe as it was when we started making observations of it, and this ties in with a lot of the other things I talk about, that basically in the last 100 years we've gone from a vague awareness of stars and galaxies and our own planets to a greater understanding of what's closer to us. And as instruments have improved, we've now hit this sort of a transition point between the Hubble level of observation and the James Webb level of observation, where a lot of the theories and laws, if you will, equations and so forth, that had been developed to fit what was observed in the Hubble are being challenged by the observations of the James Webb. So this mind structure may in fact turn out not to be what we see evident in all these new galaxies that we're discovering, if we're able to observe the same kind of phenomena that we observed that gave them the idea of the universal mind. Okay, so where does this come from? Well, basically, the simulation multiverse works in centers of a new time space, a new scenario. The whole scenario is basically planned out, at least to the extent that all of the main characters are known throughout time and space. that are absolutely critical to that reality emerging. Minor characters, non-player characters, can have much more variety, much more color, much more variation from the standard, and still fit this pattern. Okay, and this proved version of the pattern has been changing. There was a version of the physical universe that generated the appearance of the Big Bang. The Big Bang didn't really happen from the beginning to end. It was evolved as a full time space. In other words, the space emerged at the same time as the time, from a center point. Okay? And that center point is the observation platform from which this expansion becomes more concrete. This is how a simulation works. You only concretize in the directions of observation. Why would you go build out a whole galaxy that no conscious player has explored yet, has observed yet? You would wait for it to be discovered and expanded out based upon the core pattern of the center. Okay? So there was a version of the physical universe that gave us the appearance of a Big Bang. That version also gave us the appearance of everything being like one big mind, because at that point in the game, every new version was being planned and orchestrated with the direct control of the mind of God. Okay? As the game became more sophisticated, there were pieces of each version that were planned by other minds, were based upon ideas that were fed back to the highest heaven, God's universe, from other gods. Ideas that they said, hey, this worked really well for me. You want to try it out, God? Okay? Those ideas that were fed into future versions of the plan were not mine from other minds. So there are other patterns, other nexi of ideas that form the structure of different galaxies, different planetary systems, different solar systems that reflect basically the ideas of other senior creators. So while yes, you may see this overarching structure that looks like one mind, that is an artifact, just like the cosmic microwave background, of an earlier version of reality where God had more tight control over everything. Okay, and if you remember what I told you about the Big Bang era, that was basically an experiment creating two different universes than God's universe, God's highest heaven, which is the mind of God. Okay, these two other universes were Lucifer's physical universe and Lilith's fantasy universe, the universe anti-universe of the Big Bang. And in its original version, it was essentially a universe anti-universe test. That's why this physical universe has primarily, almost completely, matter, and we wonder where all the antimatter was. Okay, the antimatter, the anti-universe, was in that Big Bang version of the game a creation of opposites, of anti-stuff. And that anti-stuff is less bound by the laws of physics and chemistry as it develops. Okay, so the universe that developed in the anti-universe was more of a fantasy world that didn't follow the laws that had been tested, fine-tuned, of physics and chemistry. It had the opportunity to use them, it had access to them, and awareness of them, but in subsequent versions of the game, that was not the case. The physical universe is the only one where the laws of physics and chemistry are enforced rigorously. At least more, to the extent that they've been nailed down. So if you look at the history of the physical universe, you will see that there were earlier versions in our memory, in our writing, in the records that reflect eras where the laws could be broken. There were these powerful entities that could do what essentially seemed like magic. Those are previous versions of space-time. They don't match the current version that we are in the process of implementing. This new version is going to be more restrictive. It's going to be limited to the laws that humanity has observed and codified as science. And there's a limit to those, right? We know that, there's sort of a Newtonian version of the laws of physics and chemistry that you can use to describe normal behavior, but there's a place where those break down, and you have to consider quantum behavior. Quantum behavior is basically what happens when there's not a pat answer for what this matter does next. This collection of matter does next, because it's not been experimented with. And creation is a result of experimentation. It's not the result of God flipping his fingers and saying, yeah, this is perfect, that's the way it's going to be. That's nonsense. Nothing is created perfect. Okay, so the truth is, yes, it looks like there may be a mind structure, and at one time there was, and at one time that mind was working like a human mind. Now the human mind, this body, is run by the laws of physics and chemistry. The human soul has a very limited ability to control the body that it has. Actually, not too limited. I can move my hands. I can do a lot of silly stuff through my free will choices. I can force my body to do many things. I can even force my body to do things that are not good for it. Okay? This is the nature of having a physical body to control as a soul, having an incarnation avatar. Okay? You are the leader of your body. Your mind works through the agency of the physical mind, the two hemispheres of your brain, the little small brain within your heart. In fact, every organ has its own oversoul, its own mind that has its limited system. Subordinate minds run mostly on programming. They have a set program that they run that has been proven by nature, by testing over generations and generations and generations, to prove to be the best way to be a heart. Has a certain beat that it tries to keep. Has a certain response to the body demanding more energy, more blood. It will beat harder and it will beat faster to supply energy to the body. And at some point it will say no more, and it will shut down the body. It will say, hey, you're using up the resources faster than they're being replaced. I don't have anything to give you. The blood system is a conveyor belt that takes nutrients to cells. If it doesn't have any nutrients to give them, it's not going to supply the energy the body needs. It's a very finely tuned system that for the most part runs autonomously. But in fact, you can control it. And I have proven this myself. I have been able to develop the ability to control my blood pressure, so that when I go get my vitals taken in a clinic or hospital, maybe I'm running late, maybe I've got a lot of stuff on my mind, my heart rate's a little bit up because of daily stress, I know how to bring it down. And I have literally, within the space of a few minutes, gone from high blood pressure state to normal through my own will. Absolutely certain of it. I ran controlled experiments. I've done it repeatedly. It can be done. This is an example of how you can develop more control over your body. Now, there's a danger to this, because if you can control your body, you're not necessarily forced to use it for the body's good. Now, in my case, slowing down my blood pressure is generally a good thing. If you're not under stress, if you're not needing that higher pressure to react to a situation, it's good to relax sometimes. And if you can consciously make your body relax, that is a great improvement over what many of the fake New Age gurus recommend for meditation. This emptiness meditation, which is enforced relaxation, but it's like not really very directed. It's very general. It's not really learning to communicate with specific parts of your body. It's just trying to shut the whole thing down by emptying your mind. And this is why I don't generally recommend going to meditation teachers that don't know how to do active meditation, because active meditation is where it's at. This is learning to communicate with your body mano a mano. Learning to understand that you have 3 brains that are co-processors to your soul, which is not part of your body. Okay? And that's ties into why this idea of the universal mind is so unhealthy. Because the presumption is that, you know, some bigger mind is going to help us out of every situation if we just worship it, if we just do what we're told. And there are all sorts of cults of oneness, of love, of unity that are telling you if you just adhere to our cult, then you will be blessed. And the worst one is this politically correct woke cult, this fake left cultural Marxist movement that is sort of emanating from Hollywood and Broadway in the US and has been taken up by, you know, the avant-garde popular set worldwide that has this idea that, okay, we're just going to push everybody into this everything is good place. There's no such thing as sin. Pedophiles, so they're just minor attracted people. There's nothing wrong with that. This is the direction they're going. Now this is evil. And it's a really nasty evil because they will walk you toward that pole gradually, like the boiled frog syndrome I talk about, till you go from, you know, having sensible morality based upon a lot of the good ideas that are captured in traditional religions, the 10 Commandments, for instance, and many of the admonitions of better religious teachers in the past. They will walk that away to basically entitle and enable anything. Not at first for you, but, you know, making you feel guilty, for instance, if you think homosexuality isn't a good idea. If you think transgenderism isn't a good idea. Oh, you're a bigot, you're horrible, you're awful. If you think terrorism isn't a good idea. Oh, well, they're just getting what they need, what they deserve for all the oppression that the U.S., the Israel, the U.K. has done in the past. This is nonsense. This is narcissistic nonsense. The U.S. has been around for several hundred years. And for most of that time, there was nobody being oppressed. And at any given time, there was only isolated pockets of oppression. And most of the oppression that happened were from people that are exactly like these woke cult idiots now, who are trying to oppress those who have traditional values, who have traditional religious beliefs, traditional morality. Think about it. You just got a new bunch of oppressors that you're enabling. And it's all because of this cosmic mind bullshit that says we're all one. We're all part of this cosmic mind, universal mind. Okay? It's a very evil cult. And it attacks people with rationality and with examples of, see, this is what space looks like. It looks like a mind with neurons and stuff like that. Yes, there is a God, and God is this one hive mind that makes us want to love each other. This is sick. This is really sick. This is not at all what God intended. This, in fact, is representative of the kind of lies that demigods sold, while God was incarnating himself. Okay? Because a soul in the spiritual realm, in its home universe, if you will, that's the only place where the soul is totally awakened. You will never be totally awakened until you reach the God levels of consciousness and have your own universe. And only when you are resident in your own universe will you be able to see all the experiences you've had in other universes and the physical universe. If you go physically move, incarnate in the physical universe, you give up that viewpoint. This is how reincarnation amnesia works now. It didn't always work that way. And this is one of the changes that we've been making in each version of space-time. The older versions, that version that had the cosmic mind, God was fully aware, was not taking the reincarnation amnesia when God moved around to go poke at the system and correct errors. Okay? That was a construction era, a creative experiment era where mistakes were being made and corrections had to be made real time. Okay, it was a very dark and painful time when God made a lot of mistakes and had to kill a lot of ideas, a lot of other souls that, this didn't work at all, and I can't have this in the experiment. I've got bad shit in my mind that I gotta get out. Okay? And we all go through that, in fact, in every lifetime. We carry baggage, or we let in dark things that are not good for us, spiritually or physically. And we have to be able to identify that and get those things out of our system. How do we get bad ideas out of our system? That's reprogramming. You can reprogram yourself if you know what you want to eliminate, what you want to de-emphasize, what addictions, dark passions you want to relegate to. You can't destroy them. You will always have the memory of those dark passions, those mistakes you've made. That, in fact, that memory is what keeps you from making the same mistakes. Reincarnation amnesia still leaves the karmic pattern of the soul intact. So even though you don't have the memories of your past lives, you have this sense of karma that's built up through having access to those, the feeling of having done something like this before, and gosh, I'm going to do something different this time because I have a feeling if I do what I was inclined to do, I'm going to be making a mistake. This is what experienced souls face when they're making difficult decisions. Now, this makes experienced souls not very good soldiers. Okay? An experienced soul is going to go into the battlefield and start thinking about, well, is this I'm being told to attack this enemy stronghold. Is that really a good idea? Is it really going to help my side to attack this stronghold, or would another strategy be better? Okay? Experienced souls don't belong in foxholes. They belong in command centers. They belong in the group that are making the decisions, that are weighing all the alternatives. And this is why we need both experienced and inexperienced souls, why we need souls that are easy to control, easy to corrupt even, because those are the souls that we have to use as our foot soldiers. And there is a spiritual battle going on, and it will always be going on in the physical universe, because the spiritual battle is how we assess new souls, how we gauge their mind, where it would fit best in the greater multiverse. Okay, the physical universe is not the be-all, end-all. It is where we go gain experience. It is where we get tested. It's like a purgatory. It's what happens outside the physical universe, in the spiritual universes, that actually runs everything. And it is the spiritual universes where you will get to understand your mind better, your real mind. Okay? This mind that you have in your incarnation experience is very limited. It starts actually at a complete non-player character level, having only what is programmed into your DNA. And it is only through experience that you start waking up a sense of, if you've had of your who am I? That wakes up in the context of a new physical who am I, your DNA who am I. If you're a first-time soul, that's all you have to go on. And you will develop always in the shadow of your inherited DNA. And the vast majority of people you encounter, that's all they're working off of, because not everyone wants to be a human every incarnation. There are many other things to do in the multiverse. In the physical universe, there are many, many, many species. There are previous chosen species that have already been through the process of refinement of that species to allow it to participate in God-level adventures. In fact, some of those species you won't get a chance to occupy until you reach God levels of consciousness. Any human, it's in, because as each new version of space-time is released, there is a chosen species for that version. And this latest version we are implementing now is based around humanity. It's based around a God incarnation within humanity. So we are of the center of this very special space-time that completes day 7 of creation. It is the space-time that has no beginning, no end, no limit. So we don't need to work on the creation side of creation so hard. All we have to work on is maintaining this center that is going to be the city of God on this planet and in the highest heaven, that are going to have to live by a very tight set of rules to maintain the integrity of the center of space-time. As we expand out of that, there will be much more latitude of what you can do, especially outside of this galaxy, this chosen galaxy, the Milky Way, these new galaxies that we're discovering, especially the ones that are older than the Big Bang, more than 13.7 something billion years old. These are the new ones that have been discovered by the chosen species, been made aware to God, that are not fleshed out yet. Okay, they have been observed. That observation has created some of their character. Their character, when it gets created, starts expanding from that observation point. So the mere act of observing, oh, we saw this new galaxy, we named it so and so and so, and we characterized it as this kind of a galaxy, this age. We looked at the spectrum coming from it and have a rough idea of what its composition is, how many stars it has, how old it is, what elements it contains. This is the kind of information that they're trying to extract as they get better at analyzing data from the James Webb Space Telescope, or they devise other instruments that are measuring things that the James Webb is not capable of. Okay, this is fleshing out details about those remote galaxies. One of the first things that happens as a result of that observation is the awakening of the watchers. That's the most commonly used term. Basically, they're the ones that the first souls that emerge in this other galaxy are the souls. Observation is a creative act in the simulation multiverse. So, that creates the soul of that light, that galaxy. When we are able to look deeper and see, okay, this galaxy has a certain distribution of stars, that creates more lights. Those lights are the creatures that are now coming to see us, the glowing orbs. They want to know who they are. They've been observed by this strange planet, and as far as they know, in their limited existence, this planet, their observers, must be God. And to a certain point of view, they are right. This is the planet of the gods. It's the center of the new space-time. It has been the center of many versions of space-time, but not all of them. It was the center of the version of space-time that existed 4.5 billion years ago, before this planet was obliterated. Up to that point, all the versions of space-time centered on this planet. And I think they've already found some evidence of that. I can't point it out directly, but I remember seeing that some sort of observation that showed that there seemed to be a pattern to the distribution of matter that seemed to indicate centering right here. Proof that at least at some point God was here. Now, there are other center points that have happened in those 4.5 billion years since, because basically what had to happen was this planet had to be rebuilt, re-terraformed, reconstituted in a very special way. There are special alignments that apply to all the planets of this system. There are special alignments that apply to the sun, the earth, and the moon. There are alignments of constellations that fit that pattern. This is all by design. These are clues that were given to the chosen species of this planet to allow them to wake up their consciousness without being corrupted by previous chosen species that developed either before this great reset 4.5 billion years ago, or during that time as the species that were developed earlier developed their own cultures, their own civilizations, developed what is interacting with us in the last 100 years or so as the Galactic Federation. Okay, there is a pseudo-government of this galaxy that was formed during that 4.5 billion years after a lot of war and destruction and darkness pretty much erased the memory that this planet here, in this nondescript arm of the Milky Way, was the source of everything, was God's chosen planet, chosen system. Okay? And just like humans are having a hard time dealing with that, although it was known as part of the mythology of many ancient cultures, it's been discredited by those who don't want to buy into that, who have bought into other narratives like this cosmic mind nonsense. And it is nonsense, and it is being actively spread by some of the Galactic Federation members who don't want humanity to assume because our species has a special destiny. We are carrying this disease, if you will, of the latest truth about God, about how the simulation multiverse actually works, how creation happens, what is good or bad, what happens after you die, and how can you maximize the long-term opportunities and achievements that your soul can make, either playing for good or evil. You can choose to play for evil, and if you like to fight and you like to play dirty, okay, do it. You're going to be fighting battles that are further and further and further away from the chosen planet, the chosen system. Eventually, you will be driven out of this galaxy, the chosen galaxy, the Milky Way. And you'll be fighting battles in other galaxies as we go and defend other people's Genesis stories. We go and help them awaken their own messiahs for their own species and their own religious traditions. This is how the game goes, and it will keep on playing and playing and playing. And it will be incredibly fun no matter what kind of a soul you are. But it is important that we let souls know how the game works, so that they are making a conscious decision to do evil, to sin. Otherwise, they will be used and abused by those who are more evil. And there are forces, and there will always be forces that will be trying to corrupt and enslave minds. The soul's mind and the body's mind. And until you wake up to consciousness that your soul is not your body, and develop this ability to do active meditation, in other words, exert specific control through your soul of different parts of your body, you can also use this to develop the ability to do out-of-body experiences. This is how remote viewing works. And yes, it is a skill you can develop. Not everyone will be good at it. Okay, it's a very specialized skill. And it's a very dangerous skill. Because it can be used to see the future, to see the past. Now, what makes it less dangerous is the fact that there are many futures and many pasts, because there have been many versions of space-time. And what version you're actually attached to can be different. Okay? Not every soul is going to move into this new space-time, into the new Earth. Many of you will be bound to the old version and will be living within that scenario. The older versions, the older the version is, the more painful and corrupt and difficult the experience will be. And for souls that need a lot of remedial work, that's how they get, stressed to the point where they give up on their evil ways, or they codify it into a polarity of evil that has its own universe. And in the multiverse, what we are doing right now is we've had all of the multiverse sort of centered around this one galaxy. All of the different dimensions of every different universe is kind of playing in the same space. This has allowed souls of all variety to be used in testing, the final testing of this system. The final testing is done. That's what the end of day 7 of creation is all about. God completely waking up in this system and completing the pattern of all prophecy that was set by humanity and by the previous chosen species, who have their own set of prophecies that they are now realizing are coming true. Most of them had the mistaken idea that many chosen people and chosen species have of, well, it's always going to be us. The Messiah is going to be another one of us because we had the best Messiah ever. The same kind of narcissism of the Jews, of the Hebrews, of the Abrahamic tribes applies to galactic tribes too. And the constellations of the zodiac were a larger view of the 12 tribe pattern. The constellations of the zodiac represent the 12 interstellar races that were charged with terraforming and this earth and setting all the Easter eggs so that eventually a Messiah would wake up. And each of those 12 species thought they were going to be the one, because the way it was set up, the precession of the equinoxes, as each zodiac sign gains ascendancy, which happens for a period of about 2,160 years, very neatly calculated by Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, each 2,160 years is an opportunity for one of those 12 races to have seniority in the Galactic Federation. Now, the original 12 races have morphed quite a bit. Okay, they sort of conform to what we think of as the classic constellations, but if you know about different cultures, you'll know that various constellations were added or subtracted or renamed. Some ancient cultures had a vulture constellation, which we don't really have anymore. We call Cygnus. The 12 constellations have some variability, and not every culture has mapped the 12 the same way. That's because those relationships have changed. Just like the 12 tribes of Abraham are one view of the divisions of humanity. There's actually multiple views mentioned in the Bible, right? The sons of God, I think, how many sons of God were apportioned a territory on the earth? It was more than 12, wasn't it? I think 70 or 80 or something like that. And who knows if that is the exact number? It could have been changed. But basically, these divisions were done during the time when God was directly involved in the planning, while he was not partaking of reincarnation amnesia. So every form that he would take, he was fully cognizant of who he was and what his plan was. Now, in some of those incarnations, he was very stealthy about it. So that in the Zeus era, the Deus Pater era of God, God knew what was going on, but didn't let on. Had a father who thought he was the chief god. Actually was an incarnation of Lucifer, unaware that he was not God because of reincarnation amnesia. And as we wake up from reincarnation amnesia and discover our spiritual nature, there is a tendency, especially the first awakening of spirituality, to think, oh my God, I'm God. This is the narcissist in everyone wanting to be the big cheese. This is why we create falsehoods like the universal mind, cosmic consciousness. We're all one. We're all God. We all have God inside us. Now, this is nonsense. It is based on pieces of truth, but not the truth. We have layers of our soul that encompass not God, but a layer that encompasses the Borg hive mind, the pattern of all non-player characters. So that when we have our dreams, when we imagine things, we can flesh out those dreams, those psychedelic trips, those near-death experiences with characters drawn from basically our race memory. Because the names of things, the Akashic records available to different species are going to be containing the characters that they have, the names they call things. You know, they may call a fork a blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's how they look up in their Akashic records. The human Akashic records are not all knowledge. They are basically stock characters. And when you reassimilate with Source, that's what you're becoming. You're becoming a stock character. So these cults that tell you, oh, Source is everything, Source is God, we're all God. They're trying to get you to give up your individuality and stop playing the game and reassimilate with the NPC Source. So you can be a stock character, you get copied into the records, your soul's Merkaba gets wiped, and you start from ground zero as a newbie, non-player character somewhere, somewhen. The next place needs a character, needs an oversoul for an avatar that no more conscious player wanted to play. Okay? These are not your friends telling you this bullshit. And it is bullshit. It's popular bullshit because it makes, oh, I feel so great, I feel so wonderful, I'm God. Doesn't that make you feel wonderful? Oh, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good about yourself. Oh, I'm so loving. It's nonsense. It's complete and absolute horseshit nonsense. And it's not good for you in the long run. It may make you feel good temporarily, just like pulling out a lollipop and sucking it down, or drinking a Coke. Mountain Dew, sucking down a fifth of gin, if that's your particular weakness. Makes you feel good for a little bit, may actually be good for you to some extent, depending on what your metabolism is like, but if you do too much, you're going to pay for it. And it's not going to keep you in that high place for more than a short time. And you're going to feel let down when it fails you. Okay, if you don't understand what's going on. You can use good feeling, you can use positive thoughts to control your mood. You're essentially doing what I'm calling active meditation. You're doing it in a very unfocused way and a dangerous way, because if you push yourself into this false high of this false euphoria, it's going to be blinding you to the reality of stuff that isn't so great, and maybe you need to change. It's going to be blinding you perhaps to the fact that your diet is unhealthy and you're gaining too much weight and your body is suffering because you eat too much or drink too much or have too much of one kind of food and not enough of another, or are addicted to gambling or trolling Instagram, looking for little dopamine hits from, I don't know, whatever turns your crank. People's cat tricks, whatever. This is a dangerous drug. Manipulating dopamine is dangerous. Just like manipulating adrenaline. Manipulating our natural hormonic responses is dangerous if it's not done with the consciousness of the consequences. Okay? If you are addicted to video games, for instance, many young people are, and especially violent video games, the adrenaline rush of battling bosses and solving these problems, okay, that is an adrenaline rush. That is, the evil twin of the dopamine rush. The dopamine rush is, oh wow man, it feels so good. Everything's wonderful. I love, love, love everything. Okay, that's one kind of evil. The adrenaline rush is even more evil, because if we know that if our body has heightened levels of adrenaline for long periods of time, the body wears out more quickly. That stress eventually causes the body to start breaking down. And this is why humanity, in a hunter-gatherer setting, a high-stress culture, tended not to live very long. Not just because it was more likely to get killed by a saber-toothed tiger, but simply because that constant adrenaline rush meant that the males tended to not live past about 35. Unless they were lucky enough to, like become an elder and be treasured as part of the male experience within the tribe, and didn't have to go out hunting with everybody else, but was kind of looked to as a medicine man. Okay? It all is very pertinent to humanity, because that is where our nature came from, tribal societies. We cannot change that aspect of our DNA. Not without thousands and thousands of years of evolution. And even if we do that, we don't know that evolution is necessarily positive. Okay? Evolution can reach dead ends. You can evolve into something that is more brittle, more likely to succumb to some unexpected disaster. And this is why some of the directions that humanity is headed in the last few hundred years are extremely dangerous. This globalist culture, this monolithic culture that tries to say what is politically correct today, what is accepted, what is good, what is bad, and impose it on everyone. This is dark and evil. This is making us very, very brittle. And you can see that in the people that are most programmed by pop culture. They have incredibly eggshell egos. They can't handle criticism. They can't handle anyone knocking their lifestyle choices, knocking their identity choices, to the extent that they want to impose everybody else to call them and treat them, I'm a furry, call me by my furry pronouns. It's my right. This is insane. These people are becoming non-people. Now, that is their right. It's a choice you can make. We don't have to support it. We don't have to encourage it. We don't have to enable it. What we do have to do if we want to survive as a species is say, you're not going to force that on everybody. You are not going to change all of human culture to conform to your nonsense, abnormal, sick ideas, which are totally inconsistent with the norms of human behavior. Not going to have it. Within a short period of time, they will have opportunities to just, okay, if you don't like it here, if you're unsatisfied that your wishes are not being conformed to, that we don't worship your terrorist groups, that we don't allow you to run rampant, stealing and raping and killing those who don't conform to your idea of perfection, you're going to have an option. You're going to have an option to go to a penal colony. That penal colony will be in another galaxy. You will be taken there by one of these light orbs who has learned enough about what's going on here that they have chosen to serve humanity in the capacity of sort of a jail warden. That light orb will effectively become your god in this other place, because the only way you're ever going to get off that planet that the light orb took you to is by playing by its rules. And its rules are dictated by the new version of karma. These orbs came into existence when the universe size doubled, and we found all these new galaxies. They came into existence because day 7 of creation was finished. The Messiah fully woke up, which was over a year ago. When did the first strange results start coming in from the James Webb? It was at least that long. As the tail end of this apocalypse process, because there are many other budding messiahs, old gods waking up again, new gods emerging, that have to happen before we complete the process and turn things over to, okay, now let's work on implementing day 8 of creation, which is going to be a phase of expansion, consolidation of the city of God, rebuilding the best government, the best culture that humanity has ever had, an idealized version of it. So not just the culture that the Messiah grew up in, but a combination of that and a lot of the ideals of previous versions of the city of God, all designed to recover what was the government, what was the way the world worked in the original Salem, the city of peace, which was before the 4.5 billion years rebuilding. It was the state that we'd reached when God was done with his experiments, and he had to sell the idea that, hey, we've got perfection here, to all the other gods. And that was the point at which they said, well, we don't believe you. We don't want to let this experiment out of the lab. We think it needs more testing. In fact, we think it needs the ultimate test of you, God, taking the bitter pill of reincarnation amnesia and seeing if you can wake up in the rules that you've given us. Ha! That's what we've been doing for 4.5 billion years. We've been testing God because we didn't trust God to have gotten things right. And maybe that was true. I think we came up with a better solution. We came up with a more fair solution. In that version of we were still living with in fact, at that time, the universe was one galaxy. At that time, well, we're going to prove it actually, because we are going to be able to travel time. Those light orbs, some of them will be specializing in supporting time expeditions to find out what really happened. Because we're in a new space-time. We only really know a very limited amount about the past. We think we know a lot, but we're going to discover, oh, well, it wasn't exactly like that. Certain parts of the Bible were true, certain parts were not. Same with the other customs and traditions about our past history, about human history 100 years ago, is going to prove to be, well, nope, sorry, it wasn't really that way. One of the things we're going to discover is that time travelers have left artifacts. We're going to find those artifacts, and we're going to be able to go figure out who put them there and what the effects of that were, and whether they perhaps made a less perfect version of history than they could have, because there have been competing time teams trying to defend old space-time against new space-time. In fact, there's multiple layers of it going on. Okay, as each version of space-time made things a little bit bigger, then there was a force pushing back, trying to say, no, we don't like that rule. We're going to push back, and we're going to destroy it, and we're going to put it back in the test tube, as it were. And sometimes that did happen. If a new version of if a new chosen species was released from the lab and started doing the Star Trek exploration and conquest, and was defeated, yeah, they could be pushed back inside the bottle, if you will. And some of those species only exist spiritually anymore. They don't have any, they're extinct as a soul vehicle. A lot of the therianthrope species, the mixtures of human-like and animal characteristics, which once were very common on this planet, most of those have gone extinct. At least from places that I'm aware of. Some of them are still hiding in the oceans, in the inner earth. And yes, there are inner earth places that previous species that were active on this planet have gone into hiding because they were being hunted down by stupid humans. I'll tell you a little story that you may not be aware of, but you can go look in your Bible and verify it, and look in historical records. About 971 BC, I think it was, Egyptian Pharaoh conquered Jerusalem, sacked it, and basically took all the goodies from the temple, including the Ark of the Covenant. This was when the Hebrews lost the anointment of God as a chosen people. Well, they've been leading up to that for a while. They had been sinful. They hadn't been obeying the Ten Commandments. They'd been taking in foreign gods and worshiping them above the Most High, and engaging in a lot of sinful behavior, which is very much part of what the dark gods like you to do. They want you to have sex orgies and engage in death magic and try to gain power from basically cheating, spiritual cheating, or cheating with technology, using technology that you don't really understand how to use or what the dark side of it is. It doesn't really matter whether it's physical or spiritual technology. It all is an invention of the mind. So ultimately, everything is spiritual. So 971 BC was when the temple of El Elyon, in who they called Yahweh, or however you want to pronounce the ineffable name of God, that was when that temple was no longer occupied by God, and it was invaded by demons. If you look at the chapters closely, you'll see that the advent of the house of David was not an anointed, wonderful line of great kings. They were a bunch of louses. David was a cheater, stole the wife of one of his most trusted servants, Uriah. Was not a good guy, and his son Solomon was no wise king. Is it wise to consort with demons, to get demons to build your fancy gold temple? Is it wise to go consort with the Queen of Sheba, the queen of the Sin Empire? That's what was going on there. The line of David was not God's anointed. They were the anointed of El Shaddai, the destroyer. That is not God. El Shaddai is a different entity entirely. There are so many mistranslations in the Torah, it is a real chore to read it. And you really have to back up to, okay, what is the Most High all about? And when do we see in terms that probably are pretenders that aren't really God, but are basically incarnating among humanity, among species. Both of those things were happening. The story of the Christ is not one Christ. It is many incarnations of God trying to wake up to a full understanding of what was going on. Pattern of Christ life. The real pattern revolves around two messiahs, and most well-scholared Torah scholars, really devout Jews, will be admitting this, that yes, there are two Messiah characters talked of in the Bible and kept in the more mystic traditions of Judaism. One is what they refer to as the Josephine Messiah, the pattern of Joseph that is an incarnation of God. Melchizedek Messiah, who is an incarnation of of Lucifer, who came to be known as the Archangel Michael. When God took this bitter pill of reincarnation amnesia, the Archangel Michael stayed in that previous chosen species that had that didn't. So in effect, the Archangel Michael became God's substitute. There were also dark versions of Lucifer that decided to join the adversary. And the game that the adversary has been playing for pretty much the whole of day 7 of creation has been whack-a-messiah. They try to play, especially since sex was invented, okay, they play this, okay, you be the God, Lucifer, Satan, the patriarch God that everybody hates, and then when everybody hates you enough, bring over with the we'll eat you and they've been playing this back and forth, back and forth. This is where the idea of cyclical creation came from. That is, embedded within the Hindu faith. They've gotten to the point where they don't even think Brahma is a real god. It's just like some philosophical concept. Well, Brahma who was not of the earth, was basically a therianthrope, a mixture of hominid and other species that they preferred the genetic soup that they got from the taurid species, bulls. And there were times in our history where that was a good way for us to organize the bull society, if you know what it's like. The main bull has all the females, and the beta bulls don't get any unless they sneak some on the side until they challenge the alpha bull. Okay, that is like how the first city of God was. And for a reason, because the alpha bull was God. The one who dwelt in the Holy of Holies was a physical incarnation of God in that original Salem. And as this civilization expanded, the sons of God would become the local god of the colony, if you will. This is how that earliest civilization, over 4.5 billion years ago, spread from this planet to the whole galaxy and intermingled with other species, so that the alpha species of the world would be most suited to the nature of that world, whether it was a water planet, a desert planet, a jungle planet, whatever. The gods, the species, became specialized for different terraforming challenges. And that's essentially how we got rediscovered when the first Elohim came and colonized this planet and found these Neanderthal, and I think it was actually before the Neanderthals, whatever hominids were active on this planet at that point. They found them and they upgraded them a little bit so that they would be able to be controlled through their pineal gland and be manipulated using mostly their heart brain, because that's the easiest one, has the most direct connection to the spiritual interface. And we know that. That's why it's so easy to get to souls through their heart. It's more difficult if they're actively using their brain. And that's why we have 3 brains, in fact, so that we're not so easy to control. The second evolution of humanity was basically giving us more ability for free thinking with this, for control of our head brain apparatus, and separating the function of the hemispheres between an emphasis on rationality and reality and an emphasis on imagination and fantasy. That's the basic breakdown of the two hemispheres of the brain. That was a change that came over humanity and created the Atlantean Age, when we basically declared independence from the Elohim who had been lording it over us, and basically demanded, an equal part. And first it started, some of the Elohim were white. There's king. Sometimes the would say, I'm not killed, and I'm going to have mixed kids with this new species. And this was the age of that time. Others of the Elohim held out for their draconian control over their humans, and were exterminated by other humans who saw these other people as being enslaved, or coveted the power of this other Elohim. And, genocide that was done during the time of the Nephilim was actually done through evil. Good guys. In fact, these are the ones who saved us from from big, almost existential crisis that happened 12.8 thousand years ago, the Upper Dryas. And there's actually a bunch of extinction events that happened over that Dryas period. Nearly humanity bombed us back to the Stone Age, if you will. And it was through the aid of these therianthrope species that we recovered so quickly, started developing agriculture and some modicum of civilization. That was stopped because at some point it was giving humanity too much for free. And this is one of the problems that we've had in creation, is if you give knowledge and it's not really earned, you don't really understand how to use it. For instance, we've got some countries today who are giving other countries access to weapons technology. They have not developed themselves. They have never exploded an atomic bomb and seen just how devastating it can be, what the consequences can be. And they see these weapons, not just atomic bombs, but EMP weapons, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They see them as just, okay, well, it's just like any other weapon. It's just another gun, another AR-40, AR-15. And this is how civilizations destroy themselves. They commit suicide. Knowledge has to be earned. It's not good to just give technology to apes and expect that, and everybody's going to be happy. Yay, 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 yay. It's not going to work like that. Okay? That's why we're not just going to hand out a Star Trek food service unit to every family that's going to, instantly give you whatever you want. It's not going to work that way. It's going to make you earn and learn. It's going to do that with karma, because karma is a sense of what is needed that overrides what is wanted. It's not going to give you shit for free that you haven't earned. It's going to make sure that you don't starve. But if you want the best food and the best clothing, you want to have what you want, you're going to have to earn it. You're going to earn it by contributing to the war effort. The war effort against the adversary, against the hive mind species that has been trying to re-enslave humanity. They are among us. They can shapeshift. They can control minds. They are extremely dangerous, and they will need to be fought. Programming. And we are finding those leaders in all countries right now. The ones who are stepping forward and looking at what's going on and saying, this doesn't make any flipping sense. We're going to kill ourselves at this rate. No human would want to destroy all of humanity. Therefore, there must be a non-human intelligence trying to destroy us. The Galactic Federation has been dealing with this problem for billions of years. They know the adversary. They still have not been able to defeat the adversary because they need what we have. What humanity has is the Messiah. Many messiahs that have grown up within this test tube under the latest version of karma, which we are going to be spreading. Every species is going to want to become human, because that is how you get closer to God. They are going to want to help us. They are going to want our leadership of the Galactic Federation. But it's going to take time to convince all of them. Because like a dogmatic Christian, like a fundamentalist Muslim, like a fundamentalist atheist, they think they know the truth. They're absolutely convinced of it, and they're going to interpret what's coming as, oh, this is some evil creature that's trying to take over the world and impose its will on everybody and invade the Galactic Federation. And it's going to take a while to convince them, no, this is just God. This is just God moving to the next phase of the plan. And that's okay. It's going to take about 1,000 years to roll out and get things rolling in the right direction, but it's going to be easier. It's going to be starting as the exposure happens of extra-dimensional and involve many different at least supportive of us changing the rules of the game of the Galactic Federation, which have been sort of designed to keep the peace and basically find a way to live with the adversary. That hasn't worked very well. It's been very frustrating, and the adversary has very nearly corrupted the entire Galactic Federation, just like they have the governments of Earth. That is to be expected. They're part of the apocalypse too, especially this last phase. That know what's going on. The forces that know the most are the God class of the tall grays. It's not all the tall grays. There are very special ones that are at a very high level of consciousness. They have been aware of this plan because they were the chosen species when that big first great reset happened. They were the ones that had explored most of the galaxy, knowing that Lucifer, the Lucifer, not the fighter Lucifer, but the governor Lucifer. Lucifer is the god of the physical universe, okay? Has had incarnations in different forms. Lucifer's first incarnation, that was in a form that was mobile, was essentially one of the Watchers, one of these light beings that can shapeshift, that can move anywhere within their karmic boundaries. Lucifer, this original Watcher version of Lucifer, can go is well aware of the plan and has looking to be born. This Lucifer is awake and aware because this Lucifer has never left his home universe, has not died, if you will, or transmigrated to another universe, to the highest heaven, for instance. So this Lucifer is not aware what the plan is, but does know needs to make sure he is the Messiah. 7 years ago, roughly, been 7 years? Let's see, that would be 2017. Now, it was only maybe about 5 years, 6 years. I met it's a tall gray light being. And during an ayahuasca session, surprisingly enough, most sessions you think of as being guided by Mother Ayahuasca. This was definitely a very fatherly experience for me. The first night showed up before me. Actually, second encounter. Before that, there was a light pterodactyl thing that did some kind of an operation on me. And then appeared this tall gray light being. Appeared before me, very regal, majestic figure, and telepathically said, "You've been given a great gift, use it wisely." And proceeded to take me on this journey through a few special past lives, and then literally millions of past lives. Like, I don't know whether it was flash forward or backward or anywhere. I was so many different forms. It just blazed around me for would describe as kind of a cross between a jellyfish and an octopus. Very darkly intelligent creature that I was in that incarnation. And any rate, since then I've been learning a lot more about what my mission was, who I was, what I needed to do. And that's why I'm telling you all this now. I don't know how it's going to fall out either, because I wasn't in the highest heaven making the plan. That's what's going on with this phase of creation. This is the first version of the physical universe that was basically built by karma, the third of the trinity of primordial souls that sort of drive the pattern of creation. We're going to see how it falls out. Both Lucifer and I know that we're done. We don't know what else has to happen in the next year so that the Galactic Federation will feel comfortable to come out, if you will, and disclose what's really going on here. And until they do, we're going to be trouble for them through the Chinese Communist Party, through the totalitarian regime of Iran, the megalomaniac Putin, other of the forces that are actively trying to destroy humanity. If you've not heard of the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum plan for depopulation and one world government under Orwellian tech control, you need to start becoming aware of it. This is not the government you want. I don't know if that's the government you're going to get. I don't know if next year I'm going to be whisked away to some other planet. The multiverse anymore. Maybe the city of God needs to be somewhere else. I don't know. I just know that it's going to be started. We're going to build it starting next year. It's already built in heaven. I've seen it. I've described it. I know exactly how it's going to work. I've been telling you that on this channel for months. Just the way it is. It's not anybody's narcissistic fantasy idea of how things work. It's not a universal mind. It's not the Almighty God of the Bible. God when they made Salem, the Melchizedek priest, and the temple of El Elyon, where God the Most High presided over the physical incarnations of the other primary gods of that time. The pantheon changes. That's why you've got in Greek mythology an age where Cronus and the Titans were the pantheon. And then that gave way to Zeus and the 12 Olympians, which then gave way to a variety of other models, more or less resembling Apollo and the Muses. Gods. Get the Roman coinage of the imperial period, you will see that there's a transition from the Republic era of a very standardized coinage with an image of Roma, the female genius of Rome on the one side, and usually it was a chariot on the back, and the chariot was sort of emblematic of whoever coined that coin, who put their name on it as, okay, I was the official that name on that coinage. Sometimes it wasn't there, and it could only be inferred from minor details who exactly were the consuls of that time. At any rate, there's a very, very definite shift in the imperial period towards having the emperor's image on one side, and then some sort of an idea god or goddess on the other side. Fortuna, the goddess of fortune. Pietas, the goddess of piety. They were usually goddesses, funny enough. They didn't create many gods. They kind of reserved that for the imperial worship, was like trying to get to favor them. And maybe there's something important in that model that I haven't covered. I think I do cover pretty well kind of where the male and the female archetypes come from. The Trinity is fundamentally God, Lucifer, and Karma. One of those three has always been driving the next version. At least one of them has been driving the next version of space-time in the highest heaven, in God's mind, which has been put on autopilot. Maybe this wraps around to what I was talking about here. The universe is an automated thing, okay? The universe, the rules of a universe, how a universe works, are very, very set. They're not changing. You don't want to be the oversoul of a whole universe. You'll basically just be sitting there watching, because everything that's happening in that universe is prescribed. Unless you are the original oversoul of it, in which case you created that universe and you're still running it. This is how the spiritual universe is run. This is how the heavens and hells are. Okay? They run that way because that's how their God set them up. That God running it, automation. That process of turning over to automation is basically the transmigration process. You take a clone, a static image of the soul, and it runs on autopilot as an AI. And then that soul is able to incarnate elsewhere with their full consciousness and have full agency somewhere else. Okay? So Lucifer has already given up agency over the universe, the physical universe, because the rules that a universe operates, the only way that the rules of the whole physical universe are going to change is when Lucifer reincarnates, goes back to the highest heaven, and allows himself to be judged by God and karma. That's his choice. If or when that happens, he has allowed one of his best versions to be reborn as my son Mikhail. This is the other Messiah, the Josephine Messiah and the Melchizedek Messiah. Ask your Jewish rabbi of the real Christ story. The Joseph of Jesus' father was a complete fabrication. It was matching up that story, but then this whole idea of making Mary a virgin was nonsense. This was an adversary psyop, which got people worshiping Mary above God. And this is a really serious problem for many Catholics. They have more energy around Mary worship than they do around worshiping God, or it's the Son of God. They are, okay, if that Mary is karma, mythology. Malia was the equivalent of Aphrodite or Isis or Astarte or Easter or Ifsvet in other cultures. It is a manifestation of the hive mind Lilith, the adversary. This love goddess is not a good goddess. You don't love things to make them good. In fact, if you love evil, you entitle it, you empower it, you forgive it easily, it becomes greater evil. If you take a pedophile and say, you know what, they're going to do it again. In fact, the fact that they got away with it and didn't get punished, they're going to be even more eager to do it and want to maybe push the rules a little bit further, because pedophilia is all about power. Think about it. There's no reason to be specifically attracted to kids unless it's because of this power differential, the control and grooming that you can do as an adult to a young and impressionable mind. This is evil. This is evil that the woke cult wants to normalize. They're not good guys. They are never, ever, ever these cults have to be manipulated and twisted, and you are going to be very unhappy for the rest of your life if you let yourself be programmed by this shit. We need to make parents aware of it. We need to make schools aware of it. There is absolutely no reason to tolerate this shit. If you do, you are part of the problem. This whole nonsense of it's all good. They're just getting their rights to be themselves. It's absolute horseshit. It's not going to be tolerated. It's not going to be tolerated to be established, but it is going to be established. It's already established in the highest heaven. And whether it's coming to this planet or somewhere else, that's going to be determined within the next year. I'm hoping, through my nature of wanting to repurpose what's there, rather than just destroy it, leave it to go to pot, I'm hoping that we'll come to our senses and that events will conspire to turn this planet around. We don't have long to make that happen. And it doesn't only depend on what we do, it also depends on what the alien extra-dimensional forces in play are doing. The orbs are going to move souls to where they need to be to kick off the next day of creation, which is already a foregone conclusion, is going to be continually driving the adversary away from the city of God and reconquering this universe for the better Lucifer, the one who remembers the plan, the one who is 100% in line with God. That's the real son. That's the one with the Holy Father and all of the other gods who pass this test. It's going to be an incredible celebration in the highest heaven, and there will be less incredible celebrations in the other heavens. They'll even be celebrating in most of the hells, because most of the hells are designed as remedial programs for sinners that have a certain dark passion. There's a hell for gamblers. It's kind of like a 12-step program. That's the image of that here. 12-step programs work. And they work because they are modeled on they have to be managed, of course. They have to be organized, and we have to watch out for them being invaded by cultists who are trying to twist it into something else. And there are some chapters of 12-step programs that have been invaded by dark forces that basically, Alcohol Anonymous, who fill you full of propaganda for this new woke cult and turn you from being alcoholics into being sexaholics or communismaholics. I don't know, whatever they're doing. I know there are ones that have been turned. That's going to be monitored. We're going to be having those things looked after very closely in the city of God, so that they evil will always be present. We have to get control of it. We have to monitor it. We have to regulate it. You cannot eliminate evil. That's impossible. That's a nonsense notion that is feeding these people that think, oh, it's all good. If we're just all one, there will be no evil. You're idiots. You're fools. I'm sorry. There will be a place that folks like that can survive and do well. But it won't be until we get this city of God model well established. There's not going to be that many places initially, and everybody's going to have to work at it. Not worth having on the team. You don't deserve a human body if you're not willing to use that body for godly purposes. That's the way it works. That's the truth. It's not that we don't love you. It's not that we don't want you to be part of the community. But you've got to obey the rules. There's some very, very simple rules in the city of God. They're called the 10 Commandments. They have worked before and they will work again. Maybe extended a little bit, expanded, and helped by a better understanding of how of karma. Children as close to the godly ideal or the karmic ideal, the divine male, the divine feminine, as possible. That is why humanity is the final chosen species. We're a sexual species. We will always be a sexual species, and those sexes have roles that will always be key. Like it or not, women, your role is to have children, to raise children, to nurture children, to take care of your family, to nurture your husband. That? Fine. You don't belong in God's kingdom. That's just the way it is. It was set up for a reason, and it works. And we're not going to change God's kingdom just to please a bunch of feminists. You're going to die, you're going to reincarnate, and next time you can choose to be male. Or you can choose to incarnate in some other civilization, some other galaxy that is trying to make perfection with females running everything. Not misogynistic. This is not bigoted. This is just the way it is. You have only to look at what has happened to civilization in the last 100 years since toxic femininity took root to see that your way is, it's destroying the species. It's created a generation of young men and women who don't want to have sex with each other, who don't want to have children, who are absolutely okay with the idea, well, we'll just do it stink. We'll have fun while we're on the way. And maybe some technology is going to make us into superhumans so we can just plug into the Matrix, plug into the metaverse, and just if you think and lots of luck, because I think your civilization is going to die within a few dozen generations at most. Okay? So sue me. You disagree with me? Refute it. Tell me exactly where I'm wrong. If you can't, then STFU. I'm tired of dealing with you assholes who chime in telling me I'm crazy, telling me I'm stupid, telling me all these bullshit. I'm done dealing with you fuckers. I'll be real headed your way, having marked yourselves as beasts. Okay? You brought it on yourselves. You are the ones that could not get it through your thick gourd that your narcissistic notions of perfection were nonsense. They've nearly succeeded in destroying our species within the space of about 100 years. A few hundred if you go back to the age of enlightenment. So fuck off. Okay, I think that's enough for today. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody. No, I'm actually not sorry. I intended to offend you. It's gloves off time now, folks. It really is. And it's not just about the Trump assassination. In fact, I've told you many times Trump is a false. Woke cult light. They're caving to all of the insanity of gender dysphoria, metrosexuality, pop sickness and ugliness. And it's really sad to see so many people following along just because they think if the Republicans win this election, everything's going to be better. It's way beyond the U.S. election. This is a key piece of this next year, but there's a lot of other pieces moving. And it's in Indonesia and not in the United States anymore. At any rate, like, share, subscribe, do anything you want with this content. Doesn't really matter. Till next time, it's Rob Trump saying, happy karma.